Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. China's stock is falling, literally and figuratively. Stock markets have been seeing a slide and a sustained loss of value. Investors are leaving and they're turning to India. Tonight we bring you the numbers, the assessments and Xi Jinping's plan to rescue his economy. Meanwhile, rice prices are on fire. Asian countries are suffering. Some are blaming India for this inflation. We'll bring you the full story. Pakistan is all set for the sham election. Today was the last day of campaigning. An Indian state is pushing for the Uniform Civil Code, one law for citizens of all religions. What does it say? And is this a trailer for a nationwide law? We'll discuss that. Also a report on how Iranian drones are dictating the future of warfare, why Hong Kong is mighty upset with Lionel Messi, and why they've ordered an investigation of sorts into his no-show at a match. How virtual reality and driving do not mix, and why the US government was forced to issue an advisory. Why West Africa's most stable democracy, Senegal, is witnessing chaos. Why Miss Japan had to relinquish her title over an affair, and how Facebook has changed our world. It has turned 20 today, but it doesn't look like a very happy birthday. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. China, Russia and Iran to hold naval drills. This comes amid rising tensions in the Red Sea and Iranian-backed Houthis and US forces mount strikes and counter-strikes. The commander of Iran's Navy says the drills will be held by April. Gun battle outside Istanbul's main courthouse. Turkish police shoot dead the two attackers. At least 6 people injured, including police officers. The shooters attacked a security checkpoint outside the courthouse. Ankara says they belong to a fringe leftist group. In India, an explosion at an illegal fireworks factory kills at least 6 people, more than 60 injured in the incident which took place in Madhya Pradesh's Harda. The blast also destroyed 60 houses. Prime Minister Modi condoles the loss of lives, announces compensation for the victims. Thai peace talks resume in Kuala Lumpur. It aims to end a 2-decade-long insurgency in the south of the country. Since 2004, more than 7,000 people have been killed and more than 13,000 injured in the conflict. Lufthansa braces for major turbulence. Tomorrow, around 25,000 of its staff will be on a strike over pay. Up to 90% of its flights are likely to be cancelled. This is the latest strike-related travel chaos to hit Germany. And King Charles, diagnosed with cancer, the British monarch will step back from public duties as he undergoes treatment. Charles became the monarch in September 2022. Just like investors in the stock market, there are two kinds of leaders, bulls and bears. What would you call Xi Jinping? If you asked him, he'd probably say he's a bull, someone who can drive the Chinese economy to newer heights. But his limitations stand exposed. There is panic in Beijing. Investors are fleeing China. They're dumping Chinese stocks. The loss so far is $7 trillion in less than 3 years. $7 trillion in less than 3 years. Last week, there was a sell-off. That alone led to a loss of almost $2 trillion in value. The problem is too big to ignore, and President Xi Jinping has finally decided to step in. He called a meeting with Chinese regulators to find a way to improve global sentiment about China and its worsening economy. The meeting was supposed to take place today. So far, we've not heard about the outcome. No big announcements yet. Earlier today, the news of this impending meeting lifted Chinese markets. But it has not impressed major investors. They seem to have run out of patience and they're moving their money to India. We're talking about billions of dollars in investment in Indian stocks. Wall Street banks are placing bigger bets. There is a gold rush, and the shift is hard to miss. Investors prefer India over China increasingly because India has consistently proven to be the driver of growth, with China developing a serious perception problem. Now, it is no longer seen as an investor-friendly destination. not just for foreign investors, but also for the local ones. They are unhappy, and many of them are venting on Weibo. Weibo, as you would know, is one of China's biggest social media platforms. It's like their Twitter or X. So here's what Chinese users are doing. They look for the account of the US Embassy in Beijing, and they start posting comments to it. These comments are basically criticism. They're slamming China's economic policies. But why do it on the US Embassy page? It's a way to escape Chinese censors, a trick that these people have devised. You see, when you post on social media, censors pick it up. But when you comment on someone else's post, there's a lesser chance of discovery, or so they think. It's a relatively safer space to criticize China, which is why they go to the US Embassy account on Weibo. It's being flooded by comments. On one particular post, there were over 100,000 comments. Let me show you some of them. This is what they're saying. Could you spare us some missiles to bomb away the Shanghai Stock Exchange? The Weibo account of the US Embassy in China has become the wailing wall of Chinese retail equity investors. These are comments by Chinese users. And do you know where they were posted? Below the picture of a giraffe. The original post was about wildlife conservation, but the comment section is filled with criticism of the Chinese economy. Well played, we say. These comments are also revealing. They show that a large number of Chinese citizens are unhappy with the meltdown in their markets. For 6 straight months now, investors have been selling Chinese stocks in large numbers. Last month alone, global funds sold Chinese stocks worth $2 billion. And they've not seen the worst yet. Experts say China's equity market is yet to hit the bottom. I have an assessment from Nomura. That's Japan's largest investment bank. They think China's economic dip, and I'm quoting, is ongoing and is likely to worsen. And what is the basis of this assessment? China's weakening economy, it faces multiple challenges, from a failing property sector to a contracting manufacturing sector. Last month, factory output declined for the 4th straight month. Manufacturing is clearly slowing down, and I'm not the one saying this. China's official data for a change shows the real picture. The sector is shrinking. And when you join all of these dots, it's easy to see why China is being called uninvestable. So investors are looking for alternatives, and they're narrowing down on India. 2 Wall Street banks have endorsed India, the Goldman Sachs Group and Morgan Stanley. They have a projection for the next decade. They say India is the prime investment destination. Goldman Sachs expects robust inflows into the Indian markets. Morgan Stanley believes, and I'm quoting, India will become the 3rd largest economy by 2027 after the US and China. And numbers support their assessment. Last year, the Indian stock market received some $20 billion from foreign investors. The momentum is clearly on India's side. Experts say Indian stocks are now overpriced. They're among the most expensive in the world. Look at the top Indian companies. Their shares are 27% more expensive when compared with the average prices from 2010 to 2020. So one can expect a price correction too. But the larger picture looks like this. More people are buying into India's growth story. The world is betting on India's rise, and the overall trajectory remains positive. What about China? Well, they have their task cut out. Short-term measures and assurances will not be enough anymore. They'll need concerted action to win back investors and reverse their decline. And the onus is squarely on Xi Jinping. In Pakistan, the countdown is on. The election campaigning ended today. It's all up to the voters of Pakistan now. Actually, scratch that. It's all up to the army of Pakistan now. We know that every election is a battle of faces. And in Pakistan, you have 3 faces. Imran Khan of the PTI, Nawaz Sharif of the Muslim League, and Bilawal Bhutto Zardari of the PPP. Of course, there's a 4th face, that of Army Chief Asim Munir. But why list the puppet master with the puppets? So let's leave him out. Now, as you know, Imran Khan is in jail, so his campaigning has been through artificial intelligence, a lot of deep fakes and written notes. The other 2 have hit the trail. Bilawal Bhutto had a rally in Karachi yesterday. He toured the city in an open truck. And the turnout? quite impressive actually. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari visited a number of streets and districts. He also stopped occasionally to speak to people. By the end of it, he looked visibly exhausted. His speech was mostly around growth.
आवाम के साथ ये है कि हम आपकी आमदनी में ना सिर्फ इजाफा करेंगे मगर इसको दुगनी करके दिखाएंगे इंशाल्लाह ताला दुगनी करके दिखाएंगे दूसरा वादा कि मैं पाकिस्तान के गरीब आवाम को 300 यूनिट मुफ्त बिजली दिलवाऊंगा सोलर के थ्रू.
Until last year, Bilawal Bhutto was allied with the Sharifs. Together, they had toppled Imran Khan. But Bhutto does not want to repeat. He says he won't be foreign minister if Nawaz Sharif wins the election. Not unless Sharif breaks the old politics, the politics of revenge. We say, good luck with that. Now, Sharif's last rally was today. The whole family lined up on stage in Kasur. It's a city south of Lahore. Again, the turnout was quite impressive. Sharif's speech was all about Pakistan's youth. Around 40% of the voters are below 35 years of age. So Nawaz Sharif turned on the charm to woo them.
Youth to mashallah हमारे नाल है, हमारे साथ है क्या हमारे नाल है, मलिक अहमद खान के साथ है. ये भी यूथ है, सफेद दाढ़ी वाला यूथ है ये, और हम सब यूथ हैं. मेरे अंदर भी यूथ का जज्बा है और अल्लाह के फजलो करम से यूथ तो भाई पाकिस्तान के साथ है, पाकिस्तान मुस्लिम लीग नून के साथ है.
So that's campaigning done. On Thursday, Pakistani voters will head to the polls. Let's look at some key numbers there. Pakistan has 128 million voters, but chances are a lot of them won't turn up. Turnout is traditionally low there. In 2018, it was just over 51%. The voting age is the same as here in India, 18 years. More than 5,100 candidates are in the fray. Most of them are men. Only 312 women are contesting this time. Imagine that. Just 312 out of more than 5,000 candidates. Some 167 political parties are registered. Their candidates are fighting for 266 seats in parliament and finally polling stations. More than 90,000 of them have been set up. Around half of them have been declared sensitive. Around 18,000 are highly sensitive, meaning these are located in restive areas. There is risk of violence or attacks. 18,000. As a result, major deployments are being planned. Some 650,000 security personnel will oversee this election. Now we come to the issues. Just three of them, honestly. The first, of course, is the economy. Pakistan's inflation is almost 30%. The country is hurtling from one IMF bailout to the next. So every voter has the same complaint. They can barely make ends meet.
We need petrol the whole day. We do get customers, but they always bargain over the fares. It is very difficult to survive. What can we do? There is no solution to the problem because the fuel is so expensive. I don't know what to do.
So my business has been impacted a lot. Before the tea was 20, 25 and 30 rupees. Now it is 60 to 70 rupees. Because nowadays the prices of tea and sugar got very expensive.
The second issue is Imran Khan. His supporters will use this election to seek revenge, to maybe spring a surprise. They'll try to, but logistically it will be tough. Because Imran Khan's party has lost its election symbol, the cricket bat. So most of his candidates are contesting as independents. Their support could be crucial. And finally, the third issue, rigging. Expect a lot of it on Thursday. Pakistanis themselves know what to expect. Polling agency Gallup surveyed 1,000 Pakistani adults last year. 70% of them did not trust the election. It's a small sample size, but it gives you the sentiment. They don't think the election will be free or fair. So the real question is this: what's the point of this sham? One major player is in jail, the other was in jail, and the third's biggest asset is his last name. Forget democracy in action. This is democracy in free fall. And from democracy in free fall to the rise of rice prices, it's a serious pain point, especially in Asia, home to more than 4 billion people whose staple food is rice. Asians consume more rice than anyone in the world. 90% of the world's rice is produced and consumed here. 90%. But these days, rice is burning a hole in pockets. There's a shortage in the market, and that is driving up prices dramatically. Take the case of the Philippines. Last month, rice inflation in the Philippines crossed 22%, the highest level since March 2009. What is the country's overall inflation rate? 2.8% last month. 2.8% inflation, but rice prices are growing at over 22%, which is 8 times faster. And it's not just the Philippines. Many other countries are reeling. Rice inflation is hitting them hard. In Nepal, for instance, rice prices have shot up by 7%. In Vietnam, prices are rising by almost 10% on a monthly basis and by almost 20% on a yearly basis. Malaysia has been forced to cap rice prices. This is after imported rice became way too expensive. Prices shot up in October last year by a whopping 36%. The trend is quite clear. The question is why? Why are rice prices on fire? Some experts are blaming India for this. Until last year, India was the world's leading exporter. 40% of the world's rice supply came from India. But then prices began rising at home. There were supply disruptions. India wanted to control inflation like everyone else. It wanted to ensure a surplus stock at home. So India imposed export restrictions. Some types of rice were banned from export. And the result was this. Some 9 million metric tons of rice disappeared from the global market. An expert in Washington gave an assessment. India's export curbs have created, quote unquote, a big hole to fill. And this argument has some merit. Yes, India is supplying less rice to global markets, but that is not the only reason behind the shortage. Rice production is shrinking worldwide, and the reason for that is climate change. Extreme weather events like floods and droughts are hampering and hurting harvest. So overall, there is less rice to go around. Farmers are unable to keep up with the rising demand and the falling supply, and the impact of extreme weather is being felt across Asia. Indonesia is predicting a lower harvest. In Vietnam, rice farmers have received instructions. They've been asked to plant their crop earlier than scheduled so that they have adequate water supply. In the Philippines, farmers are getting aid to cope with extreme weather. Last year, El Nino led to droughts and dry spells in the country. El Nino is a weather phenomenon. It causes higher temperatures. Similarly, India is calibrating its response. It has no immediate plans to lift the rice export ban, but it has made exceptions for some countries. India is sending rice to some partners, including immediate neighbors like Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. Also some ASEAN nations like Indonesia and Vietnam. Reports say in the first 8 months of 2023, India sold rice worth over $500 million to South Asian countries. ASEAN nations received some $340 million worth of Indian rice, so there is no sweeping ban. New Delhi is being careful with its supplies. Having said that, this episode makes one thing quite clear. The world's current approach is unsustainable. India alone cannot bear the burden of stabilizing global rice prices. Climate change is sure to disrupt supplies in the future too. The only way to deal with this is to mitigate global warming. Some things are best when uniform, like laws, for example. That's the big debate unfolding in India as we speak. The state government of Uttarakhand tabled a bill today, the UCC bill. That's the Uniform Civil Code. And what does it do? It aims to create uniform personal laws in the state, like when you marry or get a divorce or inherit parental wealth. The same law should apply to all. Right now, it's different for each religion. Hindus have different personal laws, Muslims have their own, so do other religions. This bill aims to abolish most of that. Instead, one uniform law will govern personal lives. It's a big reform. It's also a controversial one. The UCC has been a divisive issue in India. One side says, why bother? Why not let the diversity exist? The other side says, what about rights and uniformity? Why should two citizens of the same country follow different laws? India's ruling party belongs to the second camp. That's the BJP. They want the UCC. Their manifesto in 2019, in fact, promised the Uniform Civil Code. It's not happened at the national level, but many BJP-ruled states are planning their own versions. And Uttarakhand is the first. Its cabinet approved the bill last week. Today, the bill was tabled. It's expected to be passed in the next couple of days. After that, the UCC will apply in Uttarakhand. So no personal laws, only a uniform one in this state. Now, why is this important? A, because it has never happened before. No Indian state has implemented the UCC since independence. One state, Goa, already has it, but Goa's UCC dates back to Portuguese rule. So it's unprecedented in independent India. And B, it's a template for the future. States like Gujarat and Assam are watching closely. Their UCC could be similar to this one. So let's look at Uttarakhand's bill. What's good, what's okay, and what is not acceptable. For starters, tribal groups are excluded. UCC provisions will not apply to members of scheduled tribes. Secondly, polygamy has been banned, meaning you can take only one spouse. If you already have a partner, you cannot marry again, not unless you divorce. Marriageable age has been fixed, 21 for men and 18 for women. No matter your religion, you cannot marry below that age. And finally, a controversial provision, that of live-in relations. The Uttarakhand government wants live-in couples to register themselves. An official will then check a few things like, are both partners adults? Have they both given consent? Is one of them married? Once these checks are done, the live-in relationship is registered. But what happens if you don't inform? Then after a month, you can be punished, up to 3 months in jail and up to 10,000 rupees in fine. Now we understand the idea here. A lot of live-in relationships have gone sour. Some have ended in violence and death, so the government wants more control. But honestly, it's a slippery slope. Two consenting adults should be able to live together. They should not require government permission or registration. No democracy has such a rule. Uttarakhand should not be an exception. Hopefully, good sense will prevail. Now let's focus on the larger picture. Does India need a UCC? Well, our founding fathers thought so. The Uniform Civil Code is part of the Constitution. It's included in the directive principles of state policy. Think of them as suggestions for the government. Leaders may or may not take them, but these suggestions are there in the Constitution. In this case, the BJP has taken the suggestion. The question is, will a nationwide UCC be next? Things are moving in that direction. The UCC could be a reality if Prime Minister Modi is re-elected. Maybe the Uttarakhand bill is a trailer of that. And will the opposition agree? Well, there's no clarity on what their official position is. India's biggest opposition is the Congress party. Their leader in Uttarakhand says he is not opposed to the UCC. But in the past, their leaders have rejected it. It tells you how contentious the issue is. But it doesn't mean we should abandon it. Mature countries don't run away from tough issues. They confront them, they debate them, and finally they reach consensus. India should do the same on UCC. I know we're a country of many diversities, and that is indeed our strength. But you can't use that to justify injustices. How does diversity explain a man taking multiple wives? How does it explain a woman being denied ancestral wealth or child marriage in some remote village? It doesn't. My point is, beliefs and customs should not violate your rights, no matter which religion you belong to. The hope is a UCC can remedy that. As for the dissent and opposition, there is only one solution: a fair, transparent, and unbiased process. Such a uniform civil code should be our goal. Now let's talk about Iran, a country under heavy Western sanctions and caught in the middle of a volatile conflict in West Asia. Despite all the challenges, Iran remains an influential player in the region, practicing its own brand of strategic autonomy. Usually, its militia groups provide Tehran with crucial leverage. But now the regime has a new tool in its arsenal, a new strategic lever to pull. I'm talking about Iranian drones. They're becoming the weapon of choice for many countries across the world. Why? Because they're cheaper and they can inflict some serious damage. Our next report tells you about Iran's rising drone power.
The mighty US military is up against a new enemy. They're fast, often easy to detect, but when they are fired in large volumes, one of them can easily breach American defenses. This is what it looks like. These are drones made by Iran. Last month, one such drone attacked the US forces in Jordan and inflicted heavy damage. The capabilities of the drone left the Americans surprised.
There are still many questions, to include how the one-way attack drone could have penetrated the facility's air defenses, its point of origin, and which specific Iranian proxy group is responsible.
Experts say it was one of the Shahed drones. They became famous after entering the Ukrainian battlefield. The Russian forces have relied on them since the beginning of the war. Now, Iran-backed militia forces have been spotted using the same drones. Iran has a huge drone fleet, ranging from small lightweight weapons to large flying machines. Tehran's main weapon is this drone, the Shahed 129, also known as the AK-47 of Tehran. The weapon packs a punch. It has a range of 150 kilometers. The drone can carry multiple missiles and stay in the air for more than 15 hours. A few years ago, Iran upgraded this drone and developed the Shahed 136. This drone is also known as Kamikaze. It has a range of over 2,000 kilometers and can carry around 20 to 40 kilos of explosives. The drone can fly into the target, crash and explode. These drones are cheap to make and easy to mass produce. One Shahed drone can be manufactured for as little as $20,000. Iran's drone program is not new. It began in the 1980s, but over the last decade, Tehran has made some rapid advances. All these drones come from one source, the Shahed Aviation Industries. This is an Iranian aerospace company and is linked to Iranian's Revolutionary Guard Corps. The company is believed to have reverse-engineered Israeli and American drones. How does it manufacture these drones? The information is limited, but going by some claims, Iran gets its supplies from a range of sources. The parts come from over 70 manufacturers spread out in 13 countries and territories and includes the West. Despite the sanctions, Iran has managed to assemble drones with Western parts. According to an assessment of Iranian drones found in Ukraine, over 80% of the parts came from American companies. Washington has used sanctions to put an end to Iran's drone program. But so far, the US has failed to make a dent or even minimize the damage they've caused in West Asia's battlefield.
Who doesn't like Lionel Messi? Football pundits would say no one. He is a genius of the game, also a World Cup winner with Argentina. But ask around in Hong Kong and you might get a different answer. I'll tell you why. On Sunday, Messi's team, Inter Miami, was in Hong Kong. They played a pre-season friendly in the city. Some 38,000 fans were in attendance. All of them wanted just one thing: to see Lionel Messi play. And for that, they paid a lot of money. Up to $634 per ticket, which is around 52,000 Indian rupees for one ticket. But guess what? Messi did not take the field. He stayed on the bench as a substitute player, so the fans got angry. They started chanting refund during the match. Inter Miami won the match, but they lost the crowd. And it wasn't just the players and coach. Even club owner David Beckham was booed. He was clicking pictures on the sidelines, but when he took the mic, look at what happened. So I guess the question is, what happened here? Why didn't Messi take the field? According to him, because of an injury.
Bueno, empiezo por lo segundo. La verdad que
In Hong Kong, we had an open door training session, and I went out because there was such a big crowd there, and there was a clinic with the kids, and I wanted to be there and participate. But the truth is that the discomfort was still there, and it was very difficult for me to play.
en el aductor.
An injury is an injury, but tell that to the fans. Messi's no-show has spiraled into a crisis. Fans are demanding answers. Hong Kong's government wants accountability, and a lot of money is at stake. Sunday's match was organized by Tatler Asia. Part of it was supposed to be funded by the government. How much was that? Around $2 million. But Tatler has withdrawn that application. They say they won't take the public money. Not like they had an option. Fans are already targeting them and tearing them apart on social media. So taking public money was a non-starter. But the trouble does not end there. Hong Kong wants Tatler to reveal its contract with Inter Miami. Did it say that Messi would definitely play? Or was injury a possibility? Listen to what their CEO said.
On Sunday, before kickoff, the official team sheet, a list of the players who are available to play in the game, which was submitted by the Inter Miami CF team and signed by the head coach Gerardo Martino, showed Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez as substitute and therefore fit to play. Accordingly, Tatler Asia had every expectation that both would play the game.
So to recap, the organizers say Messi was on the team sheet. If you're on the team sheet, you're fit. And that's a fair point. Things could have been certainly handled better. Maybe Inter Miami could have informed in advance. Apparently, they told the organizers only after half-time. By then, it was too late. The organizers also pitched a backup plan. Maybe Messi could speak to the fans, sort of like a consolation address. But that too did not work out. So in the end, the fans went back angry. All they saw was Messi sitting on the sidelines. I guess you can call it a giant miscommunication. The organizers thought Messi would play. The government thought Messi would play, but the club had other plans. Something similar happened last month. Cristiano Ronaldo's club was supposed to play in China. Days before the match, Ronaldo picked up an injury. So guess what the club did? First, they cancelled the match. Then they made Ronaldo apologize. Could something similar have been done here in Hong Kong? I'm afraid it's impossible to know. In such cases, there is no perfect response. You have to accept the harsh reality. Messi is almost 36-year-old. He is key to Inter Miami's title hopes this season, not to mention their commercial success. And you can't risk your talisman. At the same time, you feel for the fans. 50,000 rupees is a lot of money for a ticket. Some of them traveled to Hong Kong from other countries. They wanted to catch a glimpse of Messi in action. You can't blame them for being angry. So going forward, I guess there is just one solution. Better communication. Do not oversell your event. Do not overpromise. Make sure you're promoting what you can deliver. There's another Miami match tomorrow, this time in Tokyo. I'm sure fans have paid a lot of money there as well. But Messi may still be a no-show.
Y nada, hoy a la tarde vamos a entrenar.
If I'm being honest, I still don't know whether I can or not attend the match in Tokyo, but I feel much better, and I'm really looking forward to being able to do it.
Sensaciones a comparación de días.
Well, the fans in Tokyo are in for a ride. It will either be a massive heartbreak or a surprise of their lifetime. For our next story, let me ask you something. What is the one thing you should not do while driving? I know what the common answers will be. Talking on the phone, texting, drinking. But here's another thing that you should not do while driving. It's playing games on your virtual reality headset. That should be obvious, right? Yet it's happening in America. A Tesla driver was caught with his VR headset on while driving. The video has since gone viral. It has even prompted alarm from the US government. The Transportation Secretary says drivers must pay attention at all times. Our next report tells you why VR and driving don't mix.
Are you at work, playing with your children, doing household chores, watching TV? You can do all of this with a VR headset. At least that's what Apple claims. But can you drive a car with one? Apple says no. But that hasn't stopped people. Last week, Apple released its Vision Pro headset. It is a virtual reality headset. The Vision Pro blends 3D digital content with the outside world. That way, you are always in touch with reality. But is it good enough to drive a car? This Tesla driver says yes. This video has since gone viral on social media. It shows the Tesla driver at the wheel. He's wearing a VR headset, he's making hand gestures, as if trying to manipulate a VR field. The video was posted by US Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. He says even assisted driving requires the human driver to be in full control. Of course, Tesla markets its cars as self-driving. There are various features: autopilot, enhanced autopilot, and full self-driving. But as Buttigieg pointed out, none of that means that vehicles are fully autonomous. Tesla agrees to that too. It says its features are for use with a fully attentive driver, one who is ready to take over at any moment. So driving with a VR headset is definitely not safe. And it's one of the many dangers of virtual reality. You see, it is a world-changing technology, an immersive world. But what happens when that experience is too immersive? You lose touch with reality. You don't know what your surroundings are. You can trip over wires, bump into your TV, break something. Or in the worst case scenario, like that Tesla driver, crash your car. These are the obvious physical dangers. But then there are other concerns too, like those related to health. You may not trip and fall, but you could get nauseous using a VR headset. Yes, virtual reality takes you on a bumpy ride, and sometimes that leaves you with motion sickness. You see, in real life, our eyes naturally converge and focus on a point in space. Our brain is used to this, but in VR, those are separate. So the brain is confused, and it leaves people with an eye strain. Plus, in a VR world, it is easy to forget your limits. People working out in virtual reality have had dislocated shoulders, fractures, and have accidentally hit bystanders, causing serious damage. A 31-year-old even broke his neck while playing a game. So the world of virtual reality may be immersive, it may be interesting, but it isn't entirely safe. The ground rule is clear the playing field. Beware of your surroundings, and if you are driving, ditch the headset. Virtual reality and driving don't mix.
Our next story comes from Senegal. It is home to about 17 million people. It is part of West Africa and one of its most stable democracies. Senegal is the only West African nation that has never had a military coup. It has never delayed a presidential election. That is, until now. The country was going to polls in 3 weeks, but yesterday lawmakers passed a contentious bill. They extended the tenure of President Macky Sall and pushed elections to December 15th. And just as the postponement was being announced, protesters marched across the capital of Dakar, calling for a reversal and clashing with the police. Now, Senegal faces a critical test of its democratic integrity. Here's a report.
Unrest gripped the parliament, just as violence and clashes erupted right outside. This is the current state of West Africa's last bastion of democracy, Senegal. It's home to about 17 million people. For years, it has been one of the most stable democracies in the usually unstable region of West Africa. Senegal is the only country here that has never had a military coup. It has seen 3 handovers of power. All were largely peaceful. It has never delayed a presidential election. That is, until now. It was supposed to hold elections in 3 weeks, but that wasn't to be. Yesterday, lawmakers passed a contentious bill. They delayed elections by 10 months to the 15th of December and extended the tenure of the current president, Macky Sall. This came after a heated discussion in the parliament. Before the vote, some opposition leaders were removed, and after it, the opposition urged people to protest. They vowed to go to court, calling the delay a constitutional coup.
Senegalese people, you have in front of you the enemies of the nation. They will ask for a contrary opinion on what has just been done. This is a constitutional coup. You should be ashamed.
So just as the bill was being passed inside the parliament, violence erupted outside. Hundreds took to the streets, clashed with the police. Tear gas was fired and access to internet services was restricted.
That's why we want all the people of Senegal to come here and to protest peacefully, we say, so that this awful ambition will not take place in this country. We deserve freedom. We have been a peaceful country, democratic country, and this president is not allowed to take our freedom just for free.
Tensions have been brewing for years now. The opposition has often claimed their candidates were unlawfully charged with crimes. One major opposition party has even been banned. Anger has been growing towards the president, and now it seems to have erupted.
We are only defending ourselves. He meddles with the constitution. He meddles with the newspapers. He meddles with the population. He does everything he can to put us in a difficult position. I say it and I repeat it once again. We are not fighting for a simple cause. We are fighting for freedom.
Macky Sall was first elected in 2012. He came to power again in 2019. In Senegal, a president serves a term of 5 years and is limited to 2 consecutive terms. Critics claim the polls were postponed for political gain. But Sall has not disclosed ambitions for a 3rd term in office. He reiterated the same this week to calm tempers.
For my part, my solemn undertaking not to stand in the presidential election remains unchanged.
But the people of Senegal are not buying his claim.
Macky Sall must go. The youth of the country gave him power and today he uses force to fight us. This servitude must end.
Now Senegal is on the brink and its democratic credentials hang in the balance. The country is facing a critical test of democratic integrity. And only time will tell if the last bastion of democracy becomes the newest headache of West Africa.
Now let's turn our attention to Japan. It is in the grip of an ugly scandal. And at the center of it is a 26-year-old beauty queen, Carolina Shino. That's her name. Shino was born in Ukraine. She moved to Japan at the age of 5. She grew up speaking and writing fluent Japanese. In 2022, she became a naturalized Japanese citizen, and last month she was named Miss Japan, the first woman of European descent to win this title. But just as she made history, she became a target of online hate. Apparently, Shino was not Japanese enough to win the title. She decided to look past this. She celebrated her win, saying, and I'm quoting, that she really had been accepted as a Japanese person. But the drama was not half finished yet. Just 2 weeks after the win, a Japanese weekly magazine published an expose. It said Shino was having an affair with a married man. Do you know what happened next? Shino accepted it, issued a public apology, and relinquished her title. And no, this is not a story from history. It's happening as we speak in 2024. You could say, what are beauty pageants without popcorn-worthy drama? And you may be right, but this is not just about the drama. This episode is all sorts of problematic. For starters, Shino was berated because of her Caucasian roots. Having a Japanese citizenship was not enough. Meeting the pageant criteria did not cut it either. You had to look Japanese. Secondly, having an affair is not a criminal act. In fact, Japan decriminalized adultery in 1947. We are living in 2024, yet women must apologize for having an affair. What about the man? By this logic, he too is a villain for cheating on his wife. Yet only one detail is public knowledge about him, and that is his occupation. The man is a doctor and an influencer. His name and age stay protected. Meanwhile, Shino faces the brunt of this affair. She is being abused online. Her name and reputation are being tarnished. So much so that she had to give up her title. And that's the thing with beauty pageants. They propagate a problematic, puritanical culture. Did you know that the success of pageant winners could be measured by the length of their hair? Not making this up. This year, Miss France was quote-unquote violently criticized for her short hair. In 2018, Miss Ukraine was disqualified because officials found out that she was a divorced mother. In 2006, Miss USA was criticized because she liked drinking. The co-owner of that pageant was Donald Trump. He publicly forgave her. He even considered giving his permission so she could pose in the Playboy magazine. Basically, showing off your body is fine as long as the man in charge is giving his blessing. Which brings me to problem number 3. Beauty pageants as a whole, they should have no place in our world. They were first conceptualized in the 1850s as a marketing tactic used by newspapers to sell cosmetics. Today, these pageants are a true embarrassment. They parade women around in bikinis, pit them against each other to find the shiniest object in the room, as one of them wins the honor of a sash and a tiara. Some may say it's more than that. Pageants claim that they offer major scholarships, but this has long been debunked. Pageant scholarships usually offer a fraction of the money they claim they do, plus women who participate spend more money than they make, and sometimes they pay a much higher price. Last year, several Miss Universe Indonesia contestants said that they were being sexually abused by organizers. In 2019, Uganda offered a proposal to hold a Miss Curvy beauty contest, a beauty pageant to put its women on display in order to attract foreign visitors. Such examples are everywhere. So beauty pageants can modernize themselves all they want to. They can add categories of intelligence, if they like, on top of attractiveness. But at the end of the day, such pageants are an antiquated reminder of what we do not want for the women of today. They're retrograde and demeaning. And I repeat, they should have no place in our present, let alone our future. Do you remember the old Facebook? Posting on people's walls, poking friends, tagging strangers in photos. In 2004, Facebook started out as a place for Harvard students to connect. 20 years later, it's a social media titan. It has multiple apps, it faces allegations of data theft and election meddling, and its parent company has a new name, Meta. The world's most popular social media site is 20. But is this birthday a happy one for Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg? How did Facebook change the social media game? Why is it still thriving after 2 decades? Our next report brings you the Facebook story.
The year was 2003. Mark Zuckerberg was at his Harvard dorm. The 19-year-old was a computer whiz. He was working on an online network. It was called Face Smash. It allowed users to objectify fellow students. They could rate them. They could even vote on who was hotter. The idea did not go down well with the administration. In fact, it nearly got him expelled. But Zuckerberg did not give up. Face Smash gave him the framework, so he started working on something new, a different type of online network, one that would later go on to become Facebook. So how did the name come about? Facebooks already existed in Harvard. They were essentially an online directory featuring photos of students and their basic information. Harvard had many of them, but there was no one with information about all students, so Zuckerberg aimed to change that. In February 2004, he launched thefacebook.com. It was with 3 of his friends. The first iteration was exclusively available only to Harvard students. It proved to be very popular. Soon, it was expanded to other colleges, the likes of Stanford, Yale, and Columbia. In less than a year, thefacebook.com became Facebook. It had 1 million users. By 2008, Facebook was unstoppable. It toppled MySpace as the most popular social networking site. It had over 50 million users. When Facebook burst onto the scene, it changed the social media game. You could write on people's walls. You could like stuff. You could tag friends in photos. All of this was revolutionary, and it fueled its sharp rise. In 2011, Facebook played a defining role in the Arab Spring. By 2012, it had 1 billion users. It's like nothing could go wrong for the social media site. It acquired Instagram, the photo-sharing app. It released its IPO. It bought the messaging app WhatsApp. It expanded in less connected countries. Being on Facebook was the new cool thing. But all good things come to an end, and Facebook learnt that the hard way. The first blow came in 2016. There were allegations of election meddling, of how Russia used the platform to meddle in the 2016 US elections. Then came the Cambridge Analytica files. It showed how Facebook had harvested the personal data of millions. Not just that, it used it for political gains. Facebook paid $725 million to settle the legal action. The incident highlighted a major issue. Personal data was no longer personal. Zuckerberg promised to do more, but he did little more than change the name of the company. By 2021, Facebook was Meta. Today, at least 3 billion people use at least one of its apps every day. It started out as a social network, but Zuckerberg built an empire. He changed media, he bought out rivals, and when he couldn't buy them, he did the second best thing. He copied their best features.
Olympic gold medalist.
And Facebook has continued to grow. It's expanding into arenas of virtual reality and artificial intelligence. 20 years ago, Facebook was a simple place to connect with your friends. Today, it's a social media titan. But it's not all hunky-dory. Usually, birthdays are a joyous occasion.
Who did you fire? Senator.
But Zuckerberg spent his birthday this year being grilled by US senators. Facebook's troubles may not be over anytime soon. But 2 decades in, it's still thriving, dictating our daily lives, one like, one reel, and one message at a time.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. In Los Angeles, mudslides buried cars and streets, causing severe damage. In Argentina, a runaway dog stole the show after invading the pitch during a football match, and a pod of killer whales was trapped in drifting ice off the coast of northern Japan. Finally, taking you back in history, on this day in 1958, tragedy struck the world of football. A plane carrying the Manchester United football team crashed at the Munich airport. 23 people lost their lives, including 8 players. We're leaving you on that note. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on First Post America.